Greetings, everybody. It's Jim, and today we're going over one of the top 50 war games of all time, according to Board Game Geek and the general gaming community. And it's deservedly so because this game does not feel like a war game. People from all kinds of walks of gaming can play it, whether you get into Euro games, kids can play it, but of course it makes war gamers happy as well. And that is one of the foundations of a great game. So today we're going to be going over with you the tutorial for Julius Caesar from Columbia Games. Okay, so I've done something that'll be for your convenience for this video. Normally when I do tutorial videos, I separate into a bunch of little videos of each chapter, and that works for things like the Fantasy Trip role-playing game tutorials that I have. But for this, what I've done is I have a timestamp in the description box below, and you'll see all the different timestamps for all the chapters in this video. So I'll have everything in one video, so don't get intimidated by the length of the video. You can come back whenever you want and go to a different chapter, and it's easily referenced if you want to repeat it and go over it again, all right? So that's how I got this video structured. So here we have the beautiful Julius Caesar map drawn up by Kareem Shakroon. Now, I hope I say that name correctly. And speaking of saying names correctly, you're going to have to forgive me. A lot of these names are really tough to say. I mean, I could say Rome and I could say Macedonia because I'm familiar with it. We've heard it maybe before in our lives. But Dalmatia, Dyrrachium, I'm going to screw up something, so just bear with me. Now, the beautiful thing about this map is it has enough detail to wet your whistle, but it doesn't have so much kitchen sink in there to bog down gameplay. So you're thinking about what's this on the map, rather than where do the troops go on the roads. Okay, that's important in most gaming, but especially important in wargaming. And this map really does the trick. Very nice. And they have a blown up, Columbia Games has this blown up neoprene map if you really want to go epic on this on the website. As the object of the game is to acquire 10 victory points by the end of a game year. Now, a game year is not a game turn, okay? There are 5 game turns in a year, okay? And at the end of the game year, you figure out the victory conditions, all right? So if you gain 10 victory points on turn 2, you got to hold those 10 victory points at turn 5, where you figure at the end of the year, where you're figuring out victory points, or you got to wait till the next year, all right? So that's important. Now, how do you get victory points? You get victory points by controlling cities. As we can see, Rome here is worth 2. Athena is worth 1. Ephesus is 1. And Byzantium is 1. And there's a whole bunch of them around here. Alexandria is worth 2. We can go on and on. But basically, that's how you get victory points. Also, you get victory points by eliminating leaders like Pompey, Antonius, and of course Caesar. All right, they're worth 1 point apiece. And that's how you get victory points in the game. Now, every team already starts with a couple of victory points, especially Pompey, which I believe starts with about 7 right off the bat. So as the role player, now I'm not here to talk about strategy specifically, all right? I'm just going to make gameplay just for the sake of the demo. All right, so I'm not going to use any specific strategies, but one that should be said so newbies don't get too flustered with frustration is you definitely have to take, if you're playing Caesar, you got to take the fight to Pompey or something, because he's already started with 7 victory points. If they go over here and take Athena, Ephesus, and Byzantium real early, they can win on the first year. So you really either got to take some control of something else that they have, or you got to get boogieing on over. You can't turtle up and be complacent. All right, so that's the basics of the victory conditions of the game. Now we definitely have to take time to talk about the key component in the game, and that is the blocks. Okay, if you're not familiar with the Columbia block system, it's an innovation that set wargaming on its head decades ago and is still strong today, and it's what makes these games great, is because it's like Stratego on steroids. Now, you may see that I've got all the blocks on the board face up. This is just for the tutorial. It's just something I'm doing so you can see where everything's at, because generally you don't. These blocks stand straight up like this, and only you can see what units you have in any area. Your opponent can't, and you can't see theirs. That adds something called the fog of war, which is very important. It allows feints and bluffs that you can't find in any other war games, which actually normally look like this. All right, you could see what your units have, or you could see where your opponents are at, and it becomes more mathy. Okay, if you have an advantage in math, you can figure out the odds. Here, you really can't do that. A little bit more estimation, a little bit more paying attention, and remembering where things are at. And it also allows for something called step reduction increases. Okay, now step reduction in a war game, usually a war game has a unit that's flat like this, and then you just flip it over if it takes damage, and then if it takes damage again, it goes off the board. Okay, and that's well and good. But these units can do this up to 4 times. They can flip 4 times. They got their main strength at the top here. So this knight unit here has a strength of 3. Right, that's what this number is right here. As it takes damage, hello, wrong button. As it takes damage, it just rotates, and then it has a strength of 2. It takes damage again. It has a strength of 1. Then the next time it goes off the board. It's as simple as that. It just allows for a few more hits, for a little bit more gradation between the units. Okay, a little bit more differences. Very important. Now, up on the left-hand corner is just nomenclature. That's just so you could, a unit to tell different units apart. So there's the Legio 11, Legion 16 up here, so you can just put them on the map for setup easier. Okay, on the upper right hand side is a letter and a number. Okay, and I'll explain more of this in the combat section. But the letter says who goes first. A's go before B's, B's go for C's, and so on. And the number is what you need on a 6-sided dice or less to hit the opposing units. And as you can see, a lot of these units have, like the leaders may have 2s and 3s, which you'll find is a big thing. But a lot of them are actually 2s and 1s. So battles really just peck at each other. They don't just blast each other out of existence. So you really got to think the long game. Again, we'll go more into that. But that is how the blocks work in the Columbia block system. Now let's talk about cards, which I think is a nice little touch to the game because it adds a little differential to each game turn. And the reason that is because this does have a very concrete way of setting up. This pieces are set up in the game every time in the same spot. All right. In other war games where there aren't cards used, basically the first 2 turns are usually, once you get playing a lot, you're going to move them in the same direction every single time because mathematically or just that this is the most optimal way to play. And it's only until the dice start rolling where the game starts to change into something different, and then the game actually begins. Here it begins at turn 1, and you can't guarantee what your opponent's going to do, and you can't guarantee that you can do the same plan every single game. So very important in this game. Now, there's 2 types of cards. There's command cards and there are god cards. All right, you get 20. There are 27 cards in the deck. And at the beginning of every turn, the cards are shuffled, and you're dealt 6 cards to each player. Each player then discards one that they don't want to use, and then they're stuck with those 5 cards for that game year. Okay, so they're going to have to plan accordingly, and that's what switches everything up. Okay, so what are the cards? Well, the command cards have 2 statistics on them. The number on the top on the flag is called the move statistic, and basically move tells you how many groups you can move in a turn. Okay, not units, groups. Okay, so like over here in Neapolis, basically if you play 1 movement point, you could move all 3 or none, or you can move as many as you want of that group. Okay, why would you move none? I don't know. You probably wouldn't, but you don't have to move all 3 if you don't want to. Okay, you can move them all, you can move none of them, everybody in that group. So if you even had a stack of 10, not that you would, and I'll explain why as we go on with this, but if you did have a stack of 10, 1 movement point can move everybody. Right? Simple as that. And just the same, if you only had a group of 1, like this lonely guy over here, you'd have to use a movement point to move this. And you'll find out you might have to do that sometime, especially with navies. All right. Now the levies are for healing and creating new units. So basically, let's say this unit had 2 points of damage on it, and it had only 1 strength point left. For each levy, you can move it up a strength point. Okay, so technically, for 1 point, you can move it up 1, or you can use both levies to move it back up to full strength. Now, levies can also be used to bring a new unit into play. So let's say we want to bring this unit into Byzantium, and that's how you do it. By the way, you have to put units on the same new units on the same spot as where they are located, with the exception of auxiliary units. Which can go anywhere, and navies and ballistas and stuff. It all depends. There are some units that can go anywhere. But basically, you start them at strength 1 and you place them down. Now, if you had 2 levies like this card, you could actually put it at strength of 2, and that's just fine. Now the god cards are all kinds of special cards. They can do everything from attack to moving special on the land or on sea. Some can bring traders into the midst and take enemy units. All kinds of crazy, wild things. So on the beginning of the turn, basically what happens is you play a card, and the person with the highest move goes first. So that's another thing about move. You actually can gain initiative. And if both players tie, then Julius Caesar goes first. Now, as far as these god cards go, the player that plays a god card automatically goes first. But if both players play a god card, the turn is canceled. Very important, interesting point there. So there's a little bit of strategy even in just playing the cards. All right, so let's take our first turn here. Again, I'm just making moves. I'm not doing anything optimal. It's just for the sake of the example. But Julius Caesar is going to play this card with a 2-2, and Pompey is going to play a 1-2. Now, as we mentioned before, the player with the highest move must go first, okay? And I do say must because some of you might be familiar with some other Columbia Games titles where there's an initiative, and that player who wins that initiative gets to choose whether to go first or go last in order to react to what the first player does. Okay, well, you can't do that here. The higher move always goes first. If you want to go second, you must play a lower move card. So there are reasons to play a lower move card, okay? So Julius is going to be able to move up to 2 groups of units, and he's going to move this group, and he's going to move this group. All right. So now, what do we worry about here? Well, I want to get into Rome with Julius. So what are we doing here? So basically, we pay attention to the roads. A solid line indicates a major road, and a dotted line indicates a minor road. All right. What that just means is a major road can hold up to 4 units on a turn, and a minor road can hold 2. So otherwise, everybody from Genoa can go right on into Rome because it's less than 4, easy enough. And these units only 2 of them can get into Rome. Now, it doesn't matter too much because this is a navy and it can't make it there, and it moves its own way. But just assume that maybe it was some other unit, it couldn't go with them. Only 2 units maximum on a minor road. Now, how do we move the navies? Well, the navies move a little bit special. You can see on the map here that all the seas are separated by white dotted lines into separate areas. So the navy can just move one, just like units can move one city. Navies can move one area. And so that's how they move there. So now they're in control of it. And just the same, these units are in control of Rome right now. They considered defending Rome if anybody attacks them. Now they get to move on to the levies. They get 2 levies. Well, everybody starts off undamaged, so there's nobody to heal. So that means they can only build units. Now, when you're building a unit, you have to, if it's one of these units, you have to control the area that you're in. So basically, they can control Rome. So they could take this piece that says Rome on it and put it in there. Now, mind you, it has to be at strength 1. It's got a levy of 2 though, so we'll make it a strength of 2 because that's a pretty powerful piece. It's better than what else you would be able to build, because if you can't build anything that's basically, all these ones are pretty powerful. Okay, because this is what you're dealing with otherwise. You're dealing with a lot of 1s, and you'll see this in combat that these aren't really that great. Now, this B4 is pretty nice, but you really want it for something that you're needing help of defending. That ballista can go anywhere. But the thing is, this is pretty well defended right now. Not worried about building one here, so we won't. So basically, now that ends Julius Caesar's turn. So now we go to Pompey, which has a 1-2. So they're only going to move 1 unit. Now, as we can see, Rome is already taken. There's no doubt about it. So Pompey doesn't want to attack that. It's going to be mass suicide. So with their one move, they are going to move these units up here, and they can go along this road right here and have a little battle. Probably still not the best, but maybe they'll get lucky. Maybe they'll be routed. Who knows? We're just doing it to do it. But they also get a levy, and so they were in control of Tarraco, but now they're technically not. So what are they going to build? Well, they're going to build a ballista, and because they're going to need the help, and they're probably going to have to take Tarraco, or they might actually build one here. Let's build it right there. And it's a 2, so because they want to try to go after Rome, so we'll build that up there. So now the turn is not, well, this portion of the turn of playing the cards is actually done. Now we get into combat. All right, so let's get our first battle set up and ready to go here. Okay, now normally these blocks are face up towards you, so your opponent can't see what you got, but now they're all face up on purpose. Okay, the veil is lifted. Okay, everybody gets to see what everybody has. So here we go. And now the attacker, in this case Pompey, has 3 turns to defeat or completely rout their opponent. If they do not, on the 4th turn, they are forced to retreat, and that means the defender gets to take pot shots at them while they go away. All right, in most cases. So turn 1, who goes first? That's easy to decide. It is determined by the letter in the upper right-hand corner of the units. The higher the letter, they go first. Okay, so in this case, the Tolatum unit with a B gets to go first. Everybody else is a C. So how do they fire? You roll a number of dice equal to the strength of the unit that is located in the upper middle of the unit. So in this case, Tolatum has a strength of 2. So what do they need to roll to hit? They roll 2 dice. We know that now. It is determined by the number next to the letter in the upper right. So this unit needs 3 or less to hit. So we roll 2 dice, 3 or less. 2 hits. All right. So what units take the hits? Okay, well, what happens here is it always goes by the highest strength unit. Okay, they take a hit, and they take hits one by one. So in other words, I'll show you right here. First thing is first, though, all 3 of these units have a strength of 3. So who would take the hit? That is up to the owner's preferences. So obviously, the defender would not want this unit with a whopping 4 firepower, one of the most powerful units in the game, doesn't want to take the hit. So he'll take the hit, one of them here, and rotate it till it has a 2 strength. And now here for the 2 strength. Notice that he couldn't have done this one twice because it's no longer the highest strength. Okay, it's always the highest strength, and it does it one by one. All right. So now that takes a hit, and now the defender chooses that one to take a hit. So now the Tolatum piece has attacked. Simple as that. So now what happens? Something tricky is going to happen here because everybody's a letter C. So who fires first? It's always the defender. That is the bonus to being the defender. You get to fire first. So now, like we said before, this is not simultaneous. These strength changes take effect now. So they no longer roll 3 dice. They roll 2 dice. So we'll start here. 2 dice, and they need a 2 to hit. Boom. Kind of jumped that one up. But got 1 hit, and doesn't matter which one. They're both C2s. Tolatum cannot get hit because these both have strengths of 3s. So we will take the unit hit here, and now this unit can hit. So let's do that. Or roll to hit. 2 misses. Okay, so that's done. Now Cordoba gets to attack, and this gets 3 dice, and it hits on 4 or less. This is going to pretty much do some damage. Not so bad, though. Only 1 hit. And Tarraco has to take the hit because it is the highest damage or highest strength. So now these units get to fire, finally. And, of course, they can only roll 2 dice now, not 3. So they're both at 2, so we'll roll this one first. No hits there. And the next 1 hit. And that has to be taken by Cordoba now. No choice at all because it has the highest strength. So that is turn 1 all done. So let's go on to turn 2. All right, so let's do turn 2. Again, B's go first, so they're going to roll 2 dice and need 3s. 1 hit, and that is going to go, they're all at 2 strength, but we're going to, of course, take the weaker unit to take the one hit. So now B's have attacked. Now C's go, and now since they're all tied, the defender goes first. So we'll start here with Carthonova, now only rolling 1 die and needs a 2 or less. Nothing. 2 dice here for Tarraco at 2 or less. Oh, and it considers that a 4. Okay, that's a good thing about Tabletop Simulator. Even when the dice are cocked, you can still count it and just say, okay, that's what happened. But now the big boy, 2 hits at 4. Let's see if they can do some damage. 1 hit. And that is going to be on any of them, so it might as well be on this unit here. All right, simple enough. Now, these units get to fire. 1 unit here at 2. 1 hit. That is going to go against Tarraco. Oop, come on. There we go. And then we get another 2 dice here and 2s. Needs 2 or less. 1 more hit, and that's going to go on Cordoba. So things are really happening now, and it looks like he doesn't. Now, I'll tell you what, Julius Caesar does not want to lose this unit. So it looks like they're going to possibly retreat here. So let's go over that in turn 3. Okay, it looks like the forces of Narbo are going to take a nice hasty retreat so they don't get slammed. So what's going to happen here? Well, the thing is, they can go, but only during their turn. So that means Tolatum here actually gets to attack first. So it's going to gladly do it and try to eliminate them. Now, he's not going to be able to eliminate Cordoba because these units will take the hit first gleefully, right? They will sacrifice themselves. Or at least by the orders of the player. So let's roll it up. And we got, need 3 or less. Wham! Both of them gone out of, not out of the game. What these actually do is they actually go back into the pool afterwards, and you can draw from them if you own Thargo, Nova, or Tarraco. But, this Tarraco unit will not be taken over anytime soon because Pompey owns it. All right, but it is going to be out of play. Okay, so that's taken care of. So now B's have gone, C's go next, and of course defenders go first. So Cordoba can go, and they can retreat to any vacant or friendly unit. So it could go to Bergdiglia. Man, I'm not going to say any of these right. Somebody's going to think I'm swearing or something like that if I get them wrong. But actually, I think he's going to stay here to be protected. We want to protect that piece and build it back up. Now, it should be said that the attackers, if they need to retreat, have actually less options. They have to retreat by using one of the roads that they came in on to the battle with. Okay, so if there's only one road that they use, they can only use that road. Now, if they have more than one road that had 2 sets of forces coming with, they could use either one. They don't have to use the same one that they came in on, okay? But it should also be stated that the city that they're going to either has to be vacant or friendly. If it's taken over in an earlier battle on that turn, and that's taken over, they can no longer retreat there either, all right? So now let's talk about regrouping. All right. Now, the victor of the battle, whether attacker or defender, gets to regroup their forces. Okay. This is almost like an extra special move to a point. They can move to any adjacent vacant or friendly city. Okay. So basically, Tolatum can actually go to this vacant area in Bergdiglia, or they can actually go back to Tarraco. Now, it should be mentioned that Tarraco technically is a vacant city. It is not a friendly city because nobody is there. As soon as you leave, anytime anybody enters a city or leaves a city, the ownership of that city changes immediately. So technically, by Pompey moving out of the city to attack, he had temporarily lost a victory point. Of course, we can gain that back just by moving back over during the regroup. And so that takes care of regroups. Let's talk about a few other special situations that might happen during a battle. All right, so now let's talk about reserve units, and this is really important because as we just learned, you only have 3 turns to defeat an enemy. So you find yourself in places where you really need to surround the enemy to get more units in there, okay? But if you don't have your knowledge of reserve units down, you're going to lose a lot of steps real quick. So let's go over that. Now, let's just assume that Julius Caesar here has 2 move points and they want to attack Utica. So they move along this road and this road, okay? So what he's got to do now, the attacker has to declare, since they're using more than one road, which road contains the main attacking force. In this case, it's going to be the strongest one that can withstand the most hits usually, and that would be Lugdunum. Okay, if I said that right, probably not. And Aqualia will be the reserve unit. All right, so and now speaking of reserve units, now it's Pompey's turn, and they have a move, and they're going to defend. Go into Utica as well with Carthago Nova, and it will be a reserve unit because the main defense force is, of course, Utica itself. So what happens? Well, when you move everybody out to the game battlefield, you are going to the main forces will meet first, and the reserves will of course be set to the side. They appear on turn 2. All right, and it's simple as that. So if these guys roll duds their first turn of attack, on turn 2, these guys come in, and then battle commences as normal. All right, but what if one unit gets totally wiped out on turn 1 of the battle? So let's say this happens to Lugdunum. They get wiped out. Well, that means for the attacker, the reserve units lose 1 step automatically, all of them, every block. So in this case, these guys would be destroyed as well, and it would be an easy day for Pompey's forces. All right. So what happens if it happens to the defender, though? What happens if Lugdunum knocks out Utica? Well, not only do these guys lose a step, but they are also now considered the attackers, because these guys come in and they're the defenders because they're late to the party, right? So they get there, they're there already, and now they're the attackers, and these guys get the defensive bonuses of going first on the same letter and so forth. So that is how reserves work. Very important. Now, there's a nice little tactic called pinning where you can actually help defend a city that you're not even close to. Basically, these units here from Pompey's forces would love to go to Carthago Nova to attack this unit that's normally pretty strong, but it's all by itself, and they think they can get an advantage and take care of it forever, right? However, they did not win initiative, and Julius did, so he moves this little auxilio unit, this weak little unit, into Tarraco to attack. Now, is he attacking to actually think he's going to win? No. As a matter of fact, if all 3 blocks stay there, he's probably most likely going to lose. However, they really want to attack, and he knew it too. So they are going to, but they are forced to leave behind an equal number of blocks that are attacking. So I attacked with 1, Julius attacked with 1. One's got to stay behind to defend, and only 2 are free to move about. Okay, and that's how pinning works. And as we can see here, even though this auxiliary could very well be lost, or at the very least, maybe can at least retreat on turn 2, because you can't retreat on turn 1 in battle. But this battle here is a lot more even, and you might even be able to say, because the defender fires first, that Carthago Nova, it's going to be an advantage for them. So take advantage of pinning where you can find it. All right, so let's talk about naval units right now. We already went over a little bit how they move. They move one area or to a port in the same area. But basically attacking and defending, it works just like land. The unit that's in an area is saying to have controlled the area, and they will be the defender, and anybody moving into their area is considered the attacker. You will notice that all the navies are all D, so it's always the defender that's going to fire first and have the advantage. The only other advantage that could be said is because most of the navies are D2s, there are a few navies that have D3s that are a little bit tougher and to deal with, but that's about it, okay? So when it comes to regrouping and retreating, it's working on the same principle, only the difference is that these navies only go to vacant or friendly areas and ports instead of just any vacant city. They don't go to vacant cities at all. And these also can attack ports as well. They can get involved in battles as long as it's a port. Just can't go to any of these cities all on the outside here. That means nothing. But this unit could go to Utica. It just couldn't go to any of these and help an attack out whatsoever. All right. So now let's go to the whole point of why navies exist in the game, and that is amphibious movement. And this is big. Navies exist for one strategic purpose. All right, now they can get involved in battles, and they have to control the seas, but you really don't want them to get into too many battles in ports, really, unless it's the end of the game and you're scrounging for strength points, then maybe. But their main purpose is amphibious movement. So what is that? All right. Well, amphibious movement is when you can move from one port to another friendly port or vacant port as long as you control the adjacent sea. Now, it costs one movement point per block, not as a group, per block. So it's expensive, but let's see if it's worth it. So in like this unit here at Masilla, where there's a port, because you control the open sea right here, you can go to this port over here in Utica, but you don't have to stop there because you got a little chain going on here. You control this sea, and you also control this sea, and you also control this sea, and you also control this sea, and all of a sudden, you're at this port all the way across the map for the cost of one movement point, and that can be a big deal when it comes to surprise movement and all kinds of things. It's a big point in the game, and you got to get it down. So let's talk about the shifty Cleopatra just for a small moment, and she definitely is shifty, but she does start in Pompey's control pretty early on and for a good while. The thing is, she has a lot of strength points, but she doesn't have a lot of firepower, so she's only existing take up hits. Mainly uses cannon fodder, so you can get your strong units to make their attacks over a period of turns. Now the thing is, like I said, she is shifty. As soon as she is eliminated by Caesar, she turns up next turn right in the midst of the battle as a strength 1 unit on his side. And of course, if Pompey defeats her again, then Pompey gets back control of her. There are two powerful but limited forces in the game, and that's ballistas and elephants. Okay, now both sides get to use a ballista, but only Pompey gets to use an elephant. And you're looking right now at how many pieces of these can be on the board at any one time. You're only going to be able to use one ballista, and if you're playing Pompey, only one elephant at any one time. Okay, but there's a reason these are pretty powerful. The ballistas fire at a B4 very early and very hard. Now, the thing is, that's only when used in defense. If you use them in an attack, they attack at D4. It's still pretty good. They're just firing late in the game. But you'll also notice that they only have 2-step reductions and are only rolling 2 dice at a time at most, right? So a little bit of an exchange there. Now, the elephants, on the other hand, can roll 4 whopping dice at a B3, but as soon as they take a hit, they immediately go to a step reduction with 2 strength. So it only has 2-step reductions, just like the ballistas, before they're off the board. Again, these are very powerful pieces, but very limited, so use them wisely. So after 5 game turns have been played, that is the end of the game year. And at that point, a special winter turn occurs. And there's a couple of steps that happen, and these have to happen in order. So what are they? The first thing is, no matter where Cleopatra's at on the map, she goes home. She could be all the way across the map. She goes all the way home to Alexandria. And anybody who controls Alexandria now controls Cleopatra. This chick really gets around, let me tell you. The next thing is navies go home to friendly ports, not vacant ports. They have to go to friendly ports in the same area that they're in. So this navy would, of course, go to Masilla. This navy could make it to Utica. This navy could also go to Utica. But this navy right here has nowhere to go, and it ends up being disbanded no matter how many strength points it has. All right. So it's very important to keep your planning about you. The next thing is winter supply. This is a big one. This is the reason why you don't want to have big groups in this game, at least not by the end of the year, okay? What happens is every city can control up to 3 units plus 1 for every victory point it has. So basically, Narbo right here, which has no victory points, can house these 3 units quite comfortably for winter. However, these units here, especially now that this Navy's moved in, has 1 extra victory point. So it's 3 plus 1. That can only control 4 units for winter. So it's got to choose one of these to totally eliminate. Again, it has nothing to do with how many steps it has. You got to get rid of 1. And then after that, you can disband a unit. Now, disbanding is a nice little strategic game ploy, where basically, let's say this unit over here, why would you want to get rid of a perfectly good unit? Well, like, let's say for some reason or another, this Roman unit found its way over here, this unit from Rome specifically. It's over here, and you're going to want to get somebody in Rome, and let's say you have to control Rome for this to work. But basically, you can disband it, but now it's available in the pool for next game year, and now you can build it right up from there. Okay, so because it's a more powerful unit, because otherwise you're going to find yourself with auxiliary units instead, which are pretty weak compared to something that could be stronger. And you're like, "Oh, I'm not using it over here anyway, might as well," and it wouldn't cost you any movement to get it over there. So that's why you would want to disband a unit. And the next thing is a year reset. You shuffle the cards, you deal them out, and you start a new year. So that's how the wintering turn works out. Now, there is a gorgeous version of Julius Caesar on computer as well as physical form. It's available through Steam through Avalon Digital. The link is down below. You can get the game, play with friends far away. Or if you want the more close up version, which we all think we do, you can go through ColumbiaGames.com and get game dollars, which I think this would give you $6 towards your next purchase of another game. So definitely take advantage of that deal. But now that you've seen this video and you've gone through this tutorial, you can definitely see why this game is one of the top 50 war games of all time, according to Board Game Geek and its players. No doubt about it. Please grab Julius Caesar, play it with a friend, play it often because it's a different game every time, and I'll see you next video.